Hello, welcome to the Mountaineer Sports Insider Podcast. This is Luke Blaine, co-sports editor of the Daily Athenaeum. After some technical difficulties, we are ready to hit the ground running with this interview we have ready today. Co-hosting with me today is not Tanner, it is Trent Lewis, one of the esteemed writers from the Daily Athenaeum. Trent, how are you doing, man?
I'm doing really good today. I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely. Trent, if you've read anything of his, chances are you've read some tennis, track and field, swim and dive, even that Texas Tech men's basketball recap from when Texas Tech came to WVU. But that is not what we're here for today. Today we have head coach of the West Virginia University tennis team, Miha Lisac, here with us today. Miha, how are you doing?
I'm doing outstanding. Thank you. I'm excited to be here. And again, I believe that this is the first head coaching interview that you're doing on this podcast, right?
Yes, that is absolutely correct.
Well, we are very honored that you chose tennis. That's awesome.
Absolutely. Trent and I, we're kind of the tennis department of the Daily Athenaeum. So we love covering the sport, love giving you all coverage. So we'll just get right into it, Miha. For those of Mountaineer Nation who might not know as much about the tennis team, might not know as much about you, just introduce yourself.
So I joined WVU's tennis team about 9 years ago. I believe this was my 9th season. And, I really chose to come to WVU and to take over the tennis program because of the huge opportunity to compete in the Big 12 conference and to build the program at the highest level in college athletics. I came over from Georgia State University, where that's my alma mater as well. That's where I went to school. That's where I competed. That's where I started my coaching career. We did extremely well at Georgia State, building the women's tennis program, and I really, was looking forward to eventually making a switch and having an opportunity to build a program without a lot of restrictions, whether that may be financially, resource-wise, but really having an opportunity to do so at the highest level in college in college tennis, right? And that's when the opportunity came open at WVU, and was a lot of mutual interest between the school and I, and I decided to come here and undertake the second project.
That's awesome. Yeah. So you all just wrapped up the season at the Big 12 tournament in Lawrence, Kansas. So just give your general thoughts on the season. What did you like? What did you maybe not like as much?
Well, we really took a big step forward as a program this year. The group that we put together 2 years ago now is a very young group of young ladies that came to WVU for the same reasons as I decided to come to WVU. I mean, really having an opportunity to compete and build the program at the highest level. And last season, as good of work that we were able to put in and train and practice and evolve and develop, the results really, we felt, did not reflect of the talent that we had in the program. And it was great to see the group continue to stay together, continue to push forwards, continue to support each other, and really make breakthroughs in the current year, accomplishing a lot of programs firsts that are allowing us now to take steps forwards as a program overall, right? So it was much needed for our program, earning and maintaining a national ranking, for example, being able to get over the top and bring in some Big 12 wins, and it's baby steps, I call them, but anytime when we accomplish something that we didn't before as a group, it's another step forward. It's another, kind of shattering the glass ceiling above our program and being able to take a step in the right direction, right? So, those two things in terms of, our overall record, how we were able to compete consistently throughout the year, earning Big 12 wins, earning a national ranking, those are huge steps in the right direction in our program, right? At the same time, as we're progressing through the Big 12 season, we were able to kind of see where we are coming short to take the next step with our program, right? So, I kind of had a feeling through the year that we may be able to take another step forwards, as we're competing against teams like Oklahoma State, Baylor, Texas Tech, TCU, right? And the team was responding to the challenges that we were putting in front of them to aim to taking one more step forwards this year as a group, as a team. Still a couple more Big 12 wins, right? Kind of climb up the Big 12 ranking, right? But we fell just short of that, right? But I think what everybody's extremely excited about now is that that's the challenge that awaits us next year, right? We have one senior that's well, she's a super senior, I guess, so she's leaving, she's graduating with a master's degree. We're very proud of her, and she's moving on, and we will be recruiting a couple of players to continue to upgrade the roster, and the players will continue to work on development throughout the summer, throughout the fall, to aim at taking that next step for our program and really starting to climb towards kind of the middle of the conference, right? So, not just being okay anymore with stealing a couple of Big 12 wins, but, really starting to make more noise in the Big 12 conference. And I believe we're very capable of accomplishing those steps.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, you talked about with steps forward. That's a perfect introduction to this next question. I mean, you all came in at number 51 in the national rankings, highest ranking in program history.
Yeah.
Camila Bassi and Ting Pei Chang, they came in at tied for number 37 in the doubles rankings, and you all also got the first conference win against Kansas State. First win against Kansas State, period, but first conference win since the 2017-2018 season.
Yeah.
I mean, what's different about this team now? Like, what separates this team from teams in past seasons?
Well, we have more talent on the team, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's evident, right? But it's not. We've had talented teams before. It's not only the talent that will get it done, right? What is different about this group compared to the teams and groups that we had in the past is that they are sticking together through the thick and the thin. They are continuing to support each other. They come to work every day and look to continue to improve and get better, regardless of kind of how we competed throughout the weekend, right? Any program will go through a couple of ups and downs during the season, but I feel that the group that we have in place are very good at coming back to work and continuing to bring the energy and the focus and the dedication towards the process of climbing forwards and improving week in and week out, right? And they've actually been doing this for 2 years, right? That's why I said that I didn't really feel like last year's results reflected the work that we were putting in, right? So none of this really happened overnight, right? We didn't walk into the season and all of a sudden we have better results. We've actually been working towards these results for 2 years now with the group that we put in place, right? And it was a little bit of a kind of delayed gratification for them, right? But credit to the players, because none of them really gave in. None of them really started, to make excuses for maybe not putting the work in when the results didn't immediately reflect what we were doing on the courts. And now we're beginning to see that a lot of this work is paying off, right? Mainly I think the things that I would say that are different about this group versus some of the other groups that we had in place is a little bit more talent, but it's mainly the culture that we are able to establish on the team with support, with being around each other. I mean, these young ladies genuinely love being around each other. They love working together. They love coming to practice, and that makes a huge difference in the development of the team and the program.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you talked about, you kind of built this team mostly in one off season. I think that in 2020 and 21, we looked at this earlier. You had 4 girls on the roster, and only 2 of those girls returned. That was Momo and Nastia. So what was that off season like, where you brought in 5 freshmen and landed 2 transfers? What was going on there in the 2021 off season?
It was hectic,
yeah.
To say the least, right? So we had at that time we had an opportunity as a program to really hit a restart button, right? I felt that building up to that year, we were able to recruit some talented players to the program, but we weren't able to put together the program of players with the right mindset in terms of how we want to build the program here at WVU, right? This is a very unique place, right? Mm-hmm. And we need to find the players that fit into the culture and mentality, of representing the Mountaineer Nation, right? Of working together, of developing together, of pushing each other forwards, right? And we didn't really reach that level of culture in the team before, right? And that off season, we had 2 players returning. We had Nastya and Momo that were coming back from the previous year. We were really able to kind of take a step back and through recruiting make sure that we were bringing in the right type of a player, not just a talented player, because we recruited so many players at the same time, right? Yeah. And it was very evident for us the first fall that we went into together as a group that we had made very good decisions in recruiting, right? And that's when the process with the current group, the 2-year process that we've gone through now started, right? It's been a heck of a ride. I mean, they enjoy being around each other. They love working together, right? And now the progress is starting to be evident as well on the court, results-wise, right? Not just in terms of what we see work-wise on a daily basis. So it was a very hectic off-season. I mean, needless to say, we have 2 coaches that, we went through a complete overhaul. I mean, recruited 6 players. Actually, 7 players, right? Yeah. There was 5 freshmen and 2 transfers. And that, recruiting 7 players in one off season is usually about 4 times as much work as what we normally do on a normal year, right? Yeah. But regardless of all of that, we kind of knew what we were getting into with our associate head coach, Jacob. But we both felt that it was much needed, and we wanted to make sure that we took that step in the right direction, right? Because that's what's setting us up now for, having a very good year of work in year 1. Maybe the results weren't there yet, but in year 2, really starting to see the results of the work that we're putting in. And now we're setting ourselves up for taking step forwards in year 3, right? And that's going to be huge, right?
Yeah. And you talk about that culture, and I mean, it's very evident if you come to a Mountaineer tennis match. I mean, all the girls are cheering each other on. The girls are loud for each other. How does having that unified culture? I think about Maya, and she came here and she seems to just fit right in. How does having a culture impact from a recruiting standpoint? I mean, obviously you want to be able to show girls in the transfer portal that you have something that they should want to be a part of. So how has this kind of meshing of this team kind of impacted recruiting?
In a major way. This is so as we're attracting more and more of the talented players to our program. This may be hard to hear for some, right? But West Virginia University is really not a destination for tennis players, right? We don't have rich history of successful tennis teams here, right? There a lot of talented players are not really looking to go to a lot of northern schools to play, right? I mean, a lot of the schools that players tend to go to would be, Florida, California, Texas, more the southern regions where the weather is more tennis-like, sort of to say. Maybe schools that have long-standing history and tradition of winning national championships, right? You look at all the blue bloods in tennis, right? The Duke, North Carolina, Georgia, Southern California, UCLA. I mean, it's you name all the schools that traditionally will be in the hunt for the national championship, right? Texas, Oklahoma in our conference, for example, right? So we don't really have those selling points that would automatically draw some of the most talented players to WVU, right? So as we're progressing through this process, we're working on finding things that will tilt the recruiting process in our favor, right? And culture is a huge part of that, right? When we get recruits on campus, and when these recruits meet our team, when they meet the staff, when they meet when they just kind of see how we operate on daily basis and how our team looks like, right? They love what they see, right? Now the challenge we still have is getting more and more recruits on campus, right? But they enjoy the visits. They love what they see. We have very high ratio of bringing recruits on campus and then signing them, right? So that is probably becoming the essential piece for us in what we are selling to the incoming recruits, right? One of the last visits that we had this spring, a very talented young lady who will be a transfer student athlete coming in, right? It's the sole reason why she decided to come to our institution, right? She's had plenty of offers from a lot of great teams, right? But it's the sole reason why she decided to choose our team versus some of the other competitors, right? And we are hoping that culture will become a bigger and a bigger factor in recruiting for us, and being able to draw more and more talented players to the team, because that's what we also need to continue to climb up the Big 12 ladder, right? So extremely important. I mean, I cannot stress the importance of, and one of the first things that we've said from the get-go is that when we get recruits on campus, these recruits, whether they end up signing with us or not, they have to walk away impressed, right? And we are getting to that point, right? They're impressed with the culture. They're impressed with the, how well they click with the team, how well they connect with the people, right? We're continuing to look for ways to get better in these areas, right? But this is miles ahead of where we were as a program years ago, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Trent's got some questions. I'm going to pass it off to him. Trent, if you want to, we already have our questions lined up. Start with that one at the bottom that it kind of goes off of what he was just talking about.
Yeah, so you're talking about recruiting in the future and even doing some recruiting this past spring. And looking at the future, the Mountaineer tennis team announced earlier this season the signing of Love Star Alexis. How do you kind of manage recruiting during the season, and what do you think the future is going to look like with that recruit?
Yeah, during the season, it's very hard to conduct visits and to recruit as intensely as we do during the off season, right? Just because needless to say, from the time we wake up in the morning to the time that we go to bed at night, we're in a very intense schedule, training wise, traveling wise, competing wise. So we try to fit in a few visits if at all possible, right? And it worked great with Love Star. It worked out very well in terms of that she had time to come visit, and we had time to be able to host her. But it's not an ideal time to be doing visits, I would say, right? I mean, we would much prefer to be doing visits either not as much over the summer because there's not necessarily as much going on campus, but especially during the fall semester when we are in less of an intense training and competing schedule with our team. There's a lot going on campus, right? And it's really an ideal time for a recruit to come and visit WVU. But sometimes we don't dictate the schedule, right? The opportunity came up to recruit Love Star, and we took advantage of it. How does the future look like with her on the team? She is someone who is coming in with extremely high ambitions. She is a graduate of Middle Tennessee State University. She did very well within their program. She has competed extremely well against some very high-ranked players in college tennis already. And she is really looking forward to taking a step and being able to compete in the Big 12 conference against some of the top-ranked players on more consistent basis, right? She has shown the ability to compete well against some of the best players in the country, but with Middle Tennessee's schedule, they don't do that week in and week out. So it's a little bit more, maybe every couple of weeks she will play maybe a top-ranked player, right? So there's definitely work that she has to continue to do in terms of preparing for the season, right? But she's coming in with very high ambitions. She's somebody who has shown potential to compete against some of what would be some of the higher-ranked players in our conference. Competed well against them, so we're looking forward to adding, obviously her talent to the program. And one other aspect of bringing Love Star to the team is that she is also a graduate transfer. This is not a freshman coming in, right? You spoke a little bit to Miha before. I mean, she's been a great addition for our program, right? But like any other freshman, when we add freshmen to the team, right, there's a lot of learning that takes place from the beginning, right? There's a lot of understanding, yes, in what we say what it takes to be a successful student athlete at this level, but that has to do with just the professionalism every day, right? In terms of how to be organized, how to be professional about the training, the off-court preparation, preparing for weekends of competition, right? Someone that's been in college for 4 years has a much better understanding of that process, is a lot more mature in that process. I would say they're a much more mature competitor, right? And with Love Star coming in, that's what we're getting, right? We're not getting maybe a talented freshman where we're going to have to go through a lot of learning, and right? I mean, we're getting somebody who, yes, she's coming in for a year, but who can kind of hit the ground running, right? Like we're looking towards Love Star to be, pushing a lot of our players, for roster spots, right? I mean, somebody who can come in and really add talent-wise, maturity-wise, leadership-wise, and someone who has ambitions to be competing at the highest level in college athletics, right? So I think the future looks bright. I mean, I think this is one of those steps, one of those upgrades that we're looking to accomplish through recruiting, right?
So you mentioned there a good bit about the development that these kind of new players have to go through when it comes to college tennis. And Camila Bassi just finished up her second year now, her sophomore year. Could you touch on kind of the leap that she has taken so far in her college career?
Kami has done very well. Kami was from day one when she came to campus, when we, or I would say even before when we recruited her, right? I mean, we knew we were getting someone who had very high potential, someone who can develop with the program as we're developing the program, projectedly through the 4 years that she will be here, right? She can grow with the program. She can continue to evolve into like some of the top spots where she can compete in our lineup. And that's exactly what's taken place, right? We felt like we had a very, very talented player last year, and Kami played a little bit lower in the lineup last year. She was kind of bouncing around between the spots 4 or 5. I think she played maybe at the third position for a couple of matches. But she went home over the summer and really took it upon herself to dedicate her summer to training, competing, developing, growing, and she did extremely well, right? And that allowed her to take a big leap from year 1 to year 2 on the tennis courts. I mean, she was, she won every match for us this season. Really started the season extremely well, right? Despite of some of the injuries that she's gone through in the fall semester, and competed very well for us during the year, right? And I think, she may be the first one to tell you that she's not very happy with her season, right? But that's Kami's personality, right? I mean, that's what we're getting with a player like Camila, right? I mean, she will be extremely focused on taking another leap from year 2 to year 3, right? She's matured a lot. She understands her game much better now, but she also sees the areas where she has to improve and progress to be able to take the step of maybe sometimes not just competing well against the players that she's up against, but being able to start turning those matches in her way, right? To be able to win those matches and bring in more points at the top spot for our team maybe than she did this year, right? But, like I was talking about Love Star, right? I mean, Camila goes very much along the same lines. We have Some other players that are still very young that go very much along the same lines of Misha, for example. Some of the others that have made tremendous progress, but they're maybe a little bit older now. Momo, I mean, she's competed extremely well this season, right? We added Maya to the roster, right? Obviously a freshman semester, she was kind of thrown into everything just right off the bat, right? But she held her own for the most part, and she did well, right? Tanya has really gone through a little bit of an up and down season injuries wise, right? But she finished extremely well. So, we know the talent that we have in her, and kind of what she's capable of. So, in all, what's most exciting about our team is that every player that we look at, they are capable of taking one or two steps forwards between the end of this season and by the time we hit conference play next year in the spring of 24, right? And if we look at where we finished the season, we are not very far from some of the top players in the Big 12. And that's what's exciting about us concluding the year and then moving into the work over the summer, fall, and really building towards what we're going to accomplish next year, right? Like how far forwards can we move the program going into next year, right? And there's a lot of excitement around it, and every player, every position that we look at, with some of the upperclassmen as well. I mean, I mentioned Momo, right? We have another upperclassman returning in Pepe. She's played extremely well for us in doubles. She's starting to really find her groove in singles as well, right? And this will be another opportunity for her to grow from the first year with us to as much as she's grown from the first year with us to the second year with us. I feel like she will grow even more from the second to the third year, right? And Momo, I feel like she's really hit her stride towards the end of the season and was not just able to compete well, but she started beating some pretty good players out on the other side of the court.
And you did mention Misha at the beginning of that statement. She's really taken some great strides this season. Even from a personal level, she's definitely one of my favorite players to watch out on the court.
We're huge Misha fans over
That's
here.
awesome.
But she's my mom's favorite player. I want to tell you that. Like, my mom, she was so like she was hypnotized by Misha out on the court because she just she's one of those players that she has herself, from a mental standpoint, she has herself together very well. And I mean, she doesn't she never seems to really be out of it mentally, and I think that's really impressive for her. But anyway, Trent, continue with you. Sorry,
Yes.
I mean,
I had to shout out my mom there with her favorite Mountaineer. But
great notes there as well, though. Mentally, she never really loses her cool. She always stays focused in the game, and I would say, especially through the latter part of the season, I definitely even started to really realize she was even better than maybe I first realized when I first saw her play. So what are some words that you could say about maybe from last season to this season with Misha?
I actually wouldn't even say from last season to this season. I would say that Misha had one of the biggest turnarounds that I have seen within 1 year, right? So I don't know if you remember, but all the notes that you had mentioned. I mean, Misha competes extremely consistently, right? She will have very few ups and downs in matches. She will never look like she's out of it, right? She will always be right in the thick of the rallies and the points and right. So I always feel that as long as she's on the court, she will give herself an opportunity, right? But I don't know if you remember it. Somewhere about halfway through the season, Misha had a fairly rough patch of 2 weeks where we didn't play really it wasn't the toughest part of our schedule, right? We played a few opponents that I feel going into the matches, the players expect to be successful against those opponents, right? But Misha had a fairly rough patch, and I think she lost, it was either 3 or 4 matches in a row against kind of mid-level competition, right? And she kind of really got down on herself and was not really competitively in a very good place, right? But what she was able to accomplish after that weekend, and that was right before we hit the Big 12 play, and what she was able to accomplish after that weekend is quite remarkable, to be honest. She went basically from being not in a very good place, I would say, competitively, to turning around and right off the bat starting to bring points in against Big 12 teams, right? And then really competed extremely well throughout the whole Big 12 season, right? In doubles as well as in singles, right? So, what made that difference exactly, right? I mean, Misha may be able to explain that to you a little bit more of what exactly clicked, why in that moment, right? We work a lot on just individual development, individual conversations with players in terms of what can they do better, how can they grow, how can they improve. If someone is not feeling like they're performing well, what are the steps they can take to get mentally into a space where they can perform at their best, right? So yes, we had a good amount of those conversations, but what exactly made a difference? Probably only Misha knows that, right? But it's really been very remarkable to observe, to be honest. I mean, looking at where she was in that spot, which was probably kind of the end of February, turning around and then really being one of the most reliable players for the rest of the season is really kind of a big mental turnaround. So, but from last year to this year, same as our other freshmen from last year, players like Camila, players like Tanya, players like, it's been a big step forwards for Misha, right? She's come in as someone who I don't really think she believed in herself a whole lot. She's obviously a very talented player, right? But I don't think maybe that's how she thought of herself. I think she had more doubts than beliefs, I would say. But she's really able to put those things together in a much, much better way from a mental standpoint, right? And she's starting to showcase what she's capable of on the court versus maybe walking on the court and more doubting herself and her skills. So it's been remarkable to observe.
So I actually have a question about, you said Misha maybe came in not really believing in herself as a player. As a coach, what kind of things do you try to do with players like that to try and turn around their mentality and put things on a more positive level?
I try to help them, as much as possible from my experiences in, being a player myself, going through some of those things myself as a player. That's not very foreign to, to tennis players to be feeling like that at some point in their career, that, maybe you don't exactly exude confidence, It's a very individual sport. It's a very mental sport, right? So you're bound to kind of fall on hard times at some point, right? We all did as players, right? So drawing upon those experiences and, helping players like Misha in this case, but, helping individual players kind of make it through and be able to not just put themselves back on their feet, but hopefully put themselves back on their feet and believe in themselves more than they did before, right? Plus, I've been in coaching now for, quite some time, just 15, 17 years, I would say. And, we work with players every year that run into those issues, right? We've had a good amount of experience with, helping players work. I don't really do anything for the player. I just help them, right? The player has to kind of figure the things out on their own, right? We're very fortunate to have the staff around the players, besides myself, that are equally as dedicated and as eager to help them, right? Our associate head coach Jacob, he's been in coaching for a very long time as well, right? He's seen a lot of these situations and cases where players either maybe don't have the most confidence to begin with, or maybe get into a rough patch and need a little bit of help to dig themselves out. We have a staff of dedicated professionals in in sports psychology, as well as all the other people that work with players, and the support that they offer is really incredible, right? Because to me, whenever someone is in a, whether it may be a rough patch or not, but whenever someone needs a little bit of help, right, that help can really come from anywhere. It doesn't have to be myself as the head coach, right? Or it doesn't have to be necessarily one of the, sports professionals that work with the player, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be a sports psychologist, right? It could be an academic advisor, right? They may just have a conversation that just helps, right? Or it could be maybe our athletic trainer, right? They may just, for some reason, feel the support needed in that moment that makes the difference for the player, right? So all of, especially for a lot of these young ladies, I mean, they are far, far away from home. I mean, our roster is largely international, and sometimes they don't have that same level of support from their families as someone that may be from close by, right? And creating that level of support around them, wherever that help may come from, I feel like is very important, right? And so, we work on it intently in terms of confidence, in terms of believing, in terms of, how do we put some of the doubts out of our minds, but the the help, the belief, the conversations, the support really comes from everyone around the players, right? It's hard to pinpoint one thing and say, hey, I would love to take more credit myself for it, but I don't think that's necessarily always the reality of the situation, right?
So I know Luke had probably asked you about Penny after the senior match the other weekend, but could you touch on senior Penny and what she kind of brought to the team?
Penny, I would say, was a very interesting recruiting process with Penny. She was coming from University of Northern Colorado, and she was transferring from UNC because the program was cut. Mm-hmm. So at some point, she actually felt like she was not going to compete in college tennis anymore. And I felt through my recruiting conversations with Penny that she was not okay with that. And as we started the recruiting process, one of the biggest attributes that I saw in Penny that was extremely important for us in the year where we recruited 7 players, 5 freshmen, was leadership, right? We were very well aware that we were putting together a group that never worked together, right? To a large extent, we only had 2 returners, Momo and Nastya, right? And they're both outstanding young ladies. Neither of them extremely outspoken, so neither of them really a personality that would provide a lot of leadership in the new group that we were putting together. So we were very well aware that one of the crucial aspects of us working with the group that will be coming in will be leadership on the team. And Penny was someone who throughout the recruiting process stood out in terms of what she can bring in that area, right? However, I mean, that being one of the main reasons why we brought Penny in, when we started getting to work in the fall semester, it was very evident that we were getting more than just that, right? I mean, she's been an outstanding leader for the program. She's been someone who every single day has shown up. I think Jacob said this at one point. Like it seems like Penny does not have a bad day, right? Which is, being a student athlete at this level, quite remarkable, right? I mean, that is not normally what happens, right? Everyone goes through a little bit of a down day. Everyone has maybe 3 exams and they show up at practice and maybe they don't have the same 100% level of focus, right? It happens, right? Like that goes kind of with being a student athlete, right? Like obviously we're working and hoping that doesn't happen often, right? But I don't remember Penny having a bad day. I mean, her level of commitment and work and dedication is just outstanding, right? And because she was approaching her training and preparation in that manner from day one that she showed up, she's actually developed into quite a player, Penny wasn't someone who came in and really felt like she could really upgrade her game a whole lot. She played a certain style which was a little bit more consistent, a little bit more defensive, and she kind of hung on to that style throughout the first year. But realized that she can actually accomplish a lot more in her game if she continues to dedicate herself to improving some of the details in her pattern play on the court, in the way that she attacks opponents, in some of the fundamentals of the game, some of the baseline shots, some of the transitions, some of the volley play that she had. So she really actually developed into a player that this year for us clinched some of the bigger matches for the team, and finished the season competing, I would say, actually at a higher level than she probably expected herself to compete when she came in to our team 2 years ago. So I can't say enough about the leadership, the dedication, the work. Penny is just someone who makes people better. That's probably the best way I can describe Penny, right? Like she's a type of a person that just makes everyone around her better. She challenges them in a way where she will always set an example for what it means to work well, right? What it means to show up, what it means to be dedicated on the court, off the court. She's always supportive. I mean, she was also our captain. So she's always extremely supportive of everyone. And if there would be a mentality that you would point to and say, this is what it means to be a student athlete at the highest level, that would be Penny. Absolutely. Day in and day out, competition in and competition out, through the good, through the bad, through some of the wins, through some of the losses. I wish we could have more of those, but, she's very unique in the mentality that she has.
Yeah. You talk about her never having a bad day. I remember during football season, my first ever football coverage going as media was the Baylor game. And I remember showing up to the stadium and they have people working the elevators. They have them. And I walk in, the first elevator right up, and I walk in and Penny's operating the elevator. And she's just got that smile on her face, that she always has. And even she smiled through the whole night. I went back up and down the elevator probably 10 times, and she was just always, she always looks like she's having a good day, even standing in the elevator at a football game, one of the most exciting football games we had all season, and I can tell just by watching her play and watching her cheer. She's loud off the court cheering for her teammates. She's a leader. I've only been around this team for 2 years. I've only gotten to see her play for those 2 years, but I mean, you can just tell, she exudes that confidence and leadership. And you talk about clinching that Marshall match. I mean, that was just amazing. That was amazing to see. And I remember one point in specific, it was 5-5, that point in the second set, that game went to deuce. And in deuce of the second set, she rushes the net and hits this approach shot down the line that was just perfect in a match where she had been, like you said, playing defensive. And, she still is kind of a defensive player. She doesn't push the net. She doesn't push her opponents. But in that instance, she did, and it worked out. And, I mean, it's just been fantastic to see her as a player, as a Mountaineer.
No, and that's the experience that we've had every single day. I mean, that's what Penny brought to the program every day, right? I mean, you bring up an example of when she helped out through her marketing internship with the football game, right? But every person that I've talked to that came across Penny at that game came to my office and said how incredible she was, right? That's just the type of a person she is, right? And that's what she brought to our program every day, right? And for any group of people, right? I mean, we're building sports teams, right? I mean, our goal is to build the program, towards the top and at the highest level in the Big 12 conference. You cannot have enough good people around the program, right? For any group of people, right? That are trying to accomplish something at a high level, right? So it's really been incredible in terms of what Penny was able to bring to the team for these 2 years. but the impact of what she's leaving here will go far beyond the 2 years of just her physically being a player on the team, right? You know, every one of the players that was around Penny, that's been around Penny over the last 2 years, has learned what it means to be a leader, right? That's what it's going to be a little bit of a transition for us, because now, when we go from the 23 to the 24 season, someone else will have to step up and be and kind of fill that void, right? But they've learned directly from Penny, right? They have a great example of what it means to be an outstanding leader on this program, right? And so the impact that she left here is not just measured in terms of wins and losses, or in terms of being a player on the team, but really creating a culture of how this program will be moving forwards, right?
Yeah, and I mean, looking back before when Tanya was injured in the first half of the season, you had down at the third double spot, you had Maya and Penny. So you have two opposite ends of the student athlete spectrum. You have a redshirt freshman paired with a fifth-year senior. How do you think Penny kind of helped Maya's development as the season went on?
I mean, you could actually see, just pointing to that example. I mean, when you look at how they started playing together, right? I mean, you have the opposite spectrum in terms of, obviously, a fifth-year senior, literally a freshman that walked through the door a couple of weeks ago, right? But also the personalities of the two, right? I mean, you have Maya, who competes with all the energy and emotion and fire out there on the court, and Penny, who is probably one of the most consistent people mentally, right? We talked about Miha before, right? I mean, one of the most consistent people mentally, right, on our team. And you could see the dynamic between the two, and you could see point in and point out Penny helping Maya through some of the mistakes, through some of the maybe decisions, through some of the ups and downs of matches, right? I mean, immediately she took on a role of being a leader in that doubles team, right? And when you talk about Maya and her development, right? How big is that for a freshman coming in? That they have someone who, from the first time that they walk on the court, they have someone next to them who can help them through these steps, right? Not just that Penny has been through these steps before, but she understands what it takes to do this at a high level, right? And she can kind of start easing Maya in right away from the get-go, right? Through all the ups and downs of competing in doubles and, single and everything else, right? I mean, you could just see that dynamic starting to take place from the first time that they walked on the court. And it was really amazing, actually. I mean, I think it's just another manifestation of, what Penny brought to the table every day, right? We kind of take some of those things for granted, but not every player that walks on the court with a freshman will be able to do the same things, right? That's not a given, right? And Penny was, and for Maya, that was a huge amount of help in easing her into competition and especially into college doubles. It's when players come in from juniors, they've obviously all competed at a high level, but mostly in singles, right? Most of these players that come in from juniors have not necessarily competed at a high level in doubles, or sometimes maybe they haven't even played a lot of doubles, right? So that's actually a bigger step for them than it is to put them into a singles lineup and have them compete, right? And that was again, like, that dynamic and help from Penny to Maya was huge.
Yeah. Oh, excuse me. And I think we talked about this before. Tennis is such an individualized sport, and different players react to different circumstances in different ways. We talk about this all the time. Whenever Momo and Miha are on the court together, they could have just won their match 6-0, and you would never know it. That they're so calm and composed. And on the other end, even Tanya, I would say, Tanya doesn't react much in terms of based on how the match is going. But on the other end of the spectrum, you have your Maya's Camila. She'll let out a yell, when she wins a point. How do you manage coaching those different types of players at the same time, with them on the same team?
Well, in tennis, like you said, we have to be aware that yes, there are team aspects to what we are doing, and there are things that we want to accomplish together as a group in terms of how does this need to look like when the group walks on the court and competes, right? But everyone is an individual, right? And you will see those differences with players on the court, right? I mean, how do we coach them through that, right? I mean, we have to continue to keep an individual mindset when we work with an individual player, right? There are things that we are setting for our team, for our program that are required for when players are on the court, right? So some of the players that may be extremely quiet, right? They do have to get a little bit louder, right? Some of the players that are maybe overly emotional during matches, right? They do have to kind of tone it down a little bit, right? Because they do influence other players around them, right? And if that influence starts to come across in a negative way, then that's not good for how the team will be able to compete forwards, right? So yes, there is kind of that middle ground that we are working towards, but some players will be above that and some players will be a little bit below that, right? Working towards the middle ground. Some players are extremely calm and consistent. Some players compete with more energy, right? Everyone is individual, and everyone also plays a role in then how we put the group together, right? There will be, you would maybe want to call them energy leaders, right? Like players that are naturally more energetic, that are naturally more loud, and they have to bring that to the team because they are the ones who will be sort of establishing the how loud and how energetic we are, right? They will be the leaders in that area. And it is important that they do lead in that area and that they are the ones who kind of push the envelope and really bring everything they've got. But it is also important for others to follow, right? So others may have to be a little bit more loud than what they were used to when they competed as individuals, right? So it goes both ways, but it is a little bit of an individual mindset. We cannot take a player and turn them into something completely different than what their natural on-court personality is, right? We can mold that personality and help them become a little bit more of the type of a player that fits better into team competition aspect of what we do. But like you noted, I mean, the individual part is still present, right? So it's a little bit tricky when it comes to working with players, but I think as individuals, they are embracing those roles and learning what their particular role is when it comes to team competition, right? And what are the aspects of that individual role that they have to improve to not just be able to bring their own point in, but help everybody else compete as well.
Yeah. Yeah, and something that I asked you about early on in the season, and I won't be asking for details on this. You all... early on in the season, you all lost Kendall Kovic. She, we send her our well wishes. We hope everything's fine there. Obviously, unfortunate, but how do you feel that the team responded to that, and kind of not in the way in a personal standpoint, but as a team standpoint? Whenever that happened, it kind of everybody who was below her had to slide up one spot in the singles lineup. You had to change some doubles lineups around. So what was that like, and how do you feel the team responded and kind of recovered after that?
It's not easy, right? It's not easy anytime when there are changes in the group, in the program, in the lineup. It affects everyone, and it affects everyone in we need to find a way to respond, right? And hopefully that response is positive, right? I feel that the group actually through that experience grew closer together. I feel that the group was able to understand that everyone is going to have to pick up a part of the slack, right? And I feel like we responded in that manner, right? I feel like we were able to every player that took a step up in the lineup, right, was able to embrace that, right? Was able to embrace that as an opportunity for that player to step up and play at a higher position, right? I feel like, we embraced the fact that, when we lose a member of the team, right, whether we like it or not, there will be a little bit more responsibility that falls on each remaining individual to bring the energy, to bring, to step up in terms of team cohesiveness, in terms of, how we show up on a match day, right? All of the details, right, that we always work on together as a team, that responsibility, a little bit of that extra responsibility then falls onto each remaining team member, right? Overall, I felt that the team responded well, right? I didn't have a feeling that there would be a huge amount of drop-off or that we would react to the situation in a negative way, right? So overall, I would say, that we responded well. Maybe it was a little bit individual for every player, but I would say that we were able to kind of weather that storm in a positive way as a group, right? That the players shared the responsibility, that the players were able to step up in areas where they needed to step up. Players that moved up a spot in the lineup embraced that challenge. We had some shuffling around in doubles, and I feel like the teams that we were putting together were equally as dedicated and energetic and focused and embracing the role of playing together in doubles. So I don't know if we can look back on it and say, well, we could have handled it better. I'm not sure. I think we handled it very well, or I think we could handle it as well as we could as a team in the middle of spring competition, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, also, kind of to bring it back to Penny, when I did talk to her after the TCU match, she, asked her what's next, what she wants to do after college. She talked about her degree in sport management, and she said she wants to, eventually coach, stay in the realm of college tennis and keep coaching, or start coaching. Has that been you think ever a possibility of Penny coming back as a coach and not as a player somewhere down the line? Is that a conversation y'all have had at all?
There always is.
Yeah.
I like the fact that some of our players are interested in coaching, that they want to stay in tennis. Obviously, everyone has their individual path and interests, right? By no means I think that every player should be staying in coaching, right? But it's good to see that some of our former players from previous years have stayed in coaching, are actually making their inroads in college coaching today. And I think Penny is someone who has just outstanding qualities to be able to be a great college coach, a great college tennis coach. Yes, these are conversations that we have had, that we are having. Is there a possibility? There always is, right? As I said before, I never feel that you could have enough good people around the program, right? But what the immediate future holds for Penny, that we'll continue to find out over the next weeks, right? So I do hope that people and future coaches like Penny would at some point be working with our program as well. But who knows? Maybe Penny will move up the coaching ranks quicker than being suitable to work with our team or whichever way. So we don't fully know what the future holds, but I would hope that at some point we would be able to bring Penny back and have her work with us in a coaching capacity or in some sort of a capacity with the program that where she can help us continue to grow and build forwards, right? So we'll see.
Yeah, as a as a fan of the team, I would love to see that. I'd love to
Yes.
see Penny back in the gold and blue. She's been a joy to watch, really.
Yes.
And
Yes, absolutely.
an incredible story. I mean, just from almost being done with tennis to coming back and impacting the team the way she has. I mean, she's been an incredible player to watch. A lot of fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is almost all we have for you. I did want to ask, over the summer, what are plans in terms of recruiting? Can we, whatever detail you can give us, could we possibly expect some commitments over the summer, or is that?
Let's hope so.
Yeah.
We can't really speak to, players that haven't committed, players that are, that we're looking at or recruiting or working on pursuing. But we're working towards signing another player in a very, I would say, intense way.
Yeah.
We're hoping that we can get another commitment somewhere. When I say near future, I mean, maybe let's say weeks or months from now, right? I mean, somewhere over the summer, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if we don't find the right player that will be interested in coming here, then that process could go into the fall semester, right? But we do feel that with the group that we have in place now, we need another piece to the puzzle, and that's what we're working on, right? I mean, is it another player that fits into the culture, the mentality that we have been able to build and establish, plus that can upgrade our roster talent-wise as we're competing against the Oklahoma States and Oklahomas and Texas and whoever else in the Big 12 conference, right? The goal again going into next season is that with the next step, right? I mean, we want to be in position to where we can start attacking, kind of middle of the pack, right? Actually, it'll be very interesting because I'm still in the mindset of the current season, right? Mm-hmm. But we have 4 teams joining the league, right?
Yeah.
So that will expand the field that we compete against tremendously, right? So, attacking that middle part of the conference, right, becomes a lot more interesting with Cincinnati, BYU, Houston, and UCF in the league as well, right? We will have that many more opportunities to be successful against the Big 12 teams, right? So, but that's kind of our immediate goal for the next 1 to 2 years, and with that in mind, we are recruiting that additional player that we want to bring into the program that can really help us, take that step. So there's nothing really, no immediate news to share yet, but there's been some intense conversations and recruiting already in place. But now that we're done with the competitive part of the season, that process will intensify as well. So there's also a potential. So we keep we're done with our competitive part of the season, but this is the first year that the sport of college tennis is hosting a national invitation tournament in addition to the NCAA, right?
Yes.
The NIT, right? So we are sort of a bubble team and could potentially receive that invitation.
Oh,
right?
really?
It's hard to say right now because this being the first year that the NIT is hosted, none of us really know kind of in what direction the committee and the invitations will go, right?
Yeah.
But we are in consideration for that tournament, right? So our season could expand. We're not in position to make the NCAA tournament this year, or yet, right? But our season could expand by receiving an invitation to the NIT. So, that would be another opportunity for the group that we have in place.
Oh yeah.
To go back at it and go out to the tournament, and that would be an invitation for 8 teams, nationwide, and we could be in position to do very well at that tournament if we get that far, if we get an invite. So
yeah, that would be fantastic to see. And I also know if that does happen and any Mountaineer fans want to watch, I believe that there's a deal with Amazon Prime Video for streaming and broadcasting on that. So if the
absolutely
if the Mountaineers make it, you'll be able to watch if you're an Amazon Prime member. But yeah, I did want to. We've talked about recruiting so much. I wanted to tell you this story. I'm not sure if you'd even remember this, but I told Trent about this before we hopped on. I back when I was an ambitious 8th grade tennis player, I reached out to you directly from over email, and I was asking, like, is there any possibility of a men's team coming together, for WVU? And you responded, and you were like, I can't talk to you directly for recruiting purposes. But I was ambitious as an 8th grade tennis player, and I had no idea what all it entailed at that point. But yeah,
that's awesome. I don't remember that conversation.
Yeah.
I apologize, but
it was a very quick email exchange.
Well, obviously there's history here at WVU with the men's team, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they had some very good men's programs in the past, right? There's still a little bit of that bad taste, about the program being cut, back in the day. So it's something where I have direct instructions of how to respond to questions about the men's team coming back, because that's not in my control. That's not something that I work with, right? I mean, my responsibility is building a women's tennis program, right? Mm-hmm. So, I apologize for the short answer, but that's kind of the direction that the department is currently going in, right? I mean, is there a potential in the far future that sports would continue to be added? Probably there is, right? Mm-hmm. But that's not something that would happen in the short run, right? I mean, and that's kind of what the policy of the department has been over the past 10 years. I mean, 9 years, 10 years since I've been here. So, we have a lot of work to do with the programs that we already have in place, right? So, then hopefully once we're all set up, to compete for Big 12 championships, then maybe we'll consider adding a few more sports, right? But I'm glad you were ambitious. I mean, you have to be. No?
I really was. Whenever I first started covering the tennis team last year, my mom asked me, she was like, are you covering the men's or the women's? And I was like, we only have a women's team. And she asked me, she said, is that why you're not playing? And I was like, yeah, that's exactly what's preventing me from playing D1 tennis. So it's been amazing. I mean, it's been awesome to follow along with you all and give you all coverage. I mean, it's been an honor. Thank you so much for always, cooperating with us, and it's been an honor to talk to players on a weekly basis. It's been fantastic. It really
no, and I appreciate just you two being there every single match. I mean, it's and we all know some of these matches can go on for quite a while. I mean, this is not an hour and a half type of an event, right? And through the years of being able to share our story through your coverage, it has been much appreciated. I say this often to people that do interview us, or players or coaches or that put anything out about the tennis team, right? Like, we're not one of the teams that's most covered, right? And we don't get an opportunity on a daily basis to share our stories or our progress or our goals or our future with the Mountaineer Nation and with WVU students and fans, right? And we always appreciate when we can get our voice out, right? I feel that we're building something special here with the tennis program, and we always appreciate a voice that we're able to share that with Mountaineer Nation. And and you two have done an incredible job in providing that voice, being there for us, and really covering our team through a lot of the ups and downs so far, and it's been a great ride, but I really feel that the best years are to come.
Yeah, absolutely. We're so excited to see it. Trent, you got anything else?
I would like to add, I am also very excited to see what the future holds for the tennis team, and also, I know Luke said it already, but yeah, it really is an honor for us just to be here and cover this sport for you guys, and it's a really unique opportunity for us to cover collegiate tennis, so thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you've made it this far, thanks for tuning in. You can get all of your Mountaineer tennis coverage right here at the Mountaineer Sports Insider, or you can follow along at the Daily Athenaeum at thedaonline.com. And stay tuned for later this week, as I'll go ahead and share it right here. We will be having sophomore superstar Camila Bossi on the Mountaineer Sports Insider podcast. So thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next time right here on the Mountaineer Sports Insider.